All right, so what we've done so far is created static web pages where a user can, read content, click on some links and get, we could take data from the database and show it to the user through our Django project. But then the question becomes, how do we make our pages more dynamic, or at least our, our data that we're working with? So that's where we talk about CRUD. So CRUD is basically an acronym, CRUD. So the C stands for create. That's where we have the ability to create data in our system. Next, we have R, which is reading data. That's something we already are doing. So we've already added data to our database. We have the ability to read it and show it to our user. So again, when we say the read portion is the user makes a GET request, they go to a web page, the data is read from the database and presented to them. So the R part, we already done. But then we need to also do have the ability to update data. So right now, our data and our web pages are static, so our user can't really do anything with the data. They can just read it. But we need to allow them to update data to have dynamic content. And finally, the D in CRUD, CRUD, the D is delete data. So those are the four main actions you can do with any piece of data, really. We accomplished the read part, but we need to have a mechanism where users can create new data, update existing data, or delete data from our database. So before we get to that, I'm going to take a slight detour and introduce the admin panel. So we've been adding our data through fixture files. Let me share my screen. I forgot to do that. So from our example earlier, we created fixture files. So this is one way to see database. We could also write some Python and create data that way. The admin terminal or the admin panel is a great feature of Django that gives you a lot of functionality and gives you the ability to kind of create your data from another point. So let's actually go about how do you access your admin panel and how do you actually add, update data. First thing I'm going to talk about is creating a default, user for your system. So to do that, you want to type python manage.py, and then the command for creating, I'll call them a super user because that's what we're creating. Create super user as one word. All right, so create super user, all one word, is going to create like a default admin user for your system. All right, they're going to have admin rights so that they can access your data without any restrictions. So I'm going to run this python manage.py create super user.
And it doesn't matter what directory we're in?
It's got to be on the Python manage.py level. I mean, you could run, it's the same as you're running any other command. So Python manage.py, when you do run server or, test or make migrations, it's the same level as that. So here I ran create super user. They're going to prompt you to fill out a form. You could pretty much use the defaults. In this case, username, I'm going to use admin. If you don't provide a name, it's going to use the default that it's specifying. So in this case, I want my super user to be called admin. So I'm going to type in admin. Email address, I will leave blank. Password, I'll use admin. Notice Django has some protections built in. So my password was really common. So it's just warning me, hey, you should probably have at least 8 characters. It's too common, whatever. In this case, I don't care. Like I'm not really worried about security for a local app. So I'm just going to hit yes. And then boom, super user created successfully. All right. So now that that's done, I need to do one more thing actually, let's just check that out. So now that I created that super user, if I go to localhost admin, sorry, I kind of had a link for that. So localhost admin, if you remember, that path should be familiar. If you go back to your project URLs, what was that? Remember we had this admin path that was already existed there? This is how you access your admin terminal. And that path already was created for us, so we didn't have to add that in. But basically I went to my localhost 8000/admin. All right, so that gives me, this form or this login place that I need to fill in. That's going to be my credentials that I just created for my super user. In my case, I named my super user admin, and my password was admin also, so I'm typing that in here. Hit login. I'm presented with this page. So there's a couple models already created. these are the models that were created when you ran your first migration script. If you remember, there's like a whole bunch of other tables created. Users and groups are something that Django kind of has already for you if you want to use it. But in this case, I'm not interested in these items, so I'm just going to kind of glaze over them. What I want to do is have the ability to interact with my models here, right? I created a post and I created a comment model. I want to have access to those in my admin terminal. So there's one additional step that you had to do, and that's go to a new file that we've not really talked about before, the admin py file within your app folder. So let me highlight that. In my app folder, there should already be an admin.py file. So I'm going to click on that, and notice it's quite empty, but we're going to add something here. So this is where you need to register your models so that your admin panel can access those models. So to do that, you type admin.site.register, and then you want to pass in the models. So in this case, I have posts, and then I also have comments. Obviously, this file needs to know about those items. So I need to import from, what's my app name? Post app.models, imports everything. All right, so I'm registering those models with my admin site. So I'm going to save that. And then, do I have a server running? I think I do. Yeah. So if I go back here, I'm going to refresh my admin page. Notice, look what showed up here. I have my app name, which is post_app. And now I have some models here. I have comments and posts. So your admin terminal gives you, as in you, the developer, the ability to CRUD your data. So when we talk about CRUD, create, read, update, and delete. So in this case, if I click on posts, notice that I have 3 post objects. That's not really descriptive, so I definitely want to change something in my code. So notice this says post object. That's not really useful for me. So if I go back to my models, hopefully this is something familiar to you guys at this point. Let's create a dunder string method. And self, and we've done this before. We're just going to return something that's more human readable. So in this case, I'm going to return self.title as my dunder string method return value. So now that I have that, I'm going to save that. To be clear, I do not need to migrate my data. I've not changed the structure of my model. I've simply added a method. So I don't need to make migrations, and I don't need to migrate to my database. Because nothing in my database side needs to reflect this method that I added. All right, so if I save that, I'm going to refresh this page that I was on. Notice I get much more friendly information here. This is the title of my post. So I have Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This is the data that already exists in my database. So if I click on Sunday, notice I get the values that are there. So I get the title, shows me that, the body of that, that post, and also the author or the name of the person that created this. All right, I could update this. Let's say Sunday, Sunday post. If I want to save that, I just go down and click save and add another, or save and continue editing, either one. So I save that. Cool. If I go back to my posts, notice that Sunday post is the new title. If I go back to my site and refresh this, notice that that's a new title of my post. So I'm actually modifying the data in my database, and pretty easy to do through your admin panel. We do that for comments also. So if I go to comments, again, not very human readable. Let's add a dunder method quickly. I'm gonna copy and paste here. Sorry. Okay, yeah, copy and paste. Let's just make this the body of the post or of the comment. So if I go here, refresh. Again, now that I added a dunder string method, if I refresh, notice I actually see the content of the comment. Okay, if I click on a comment, it shows me the body of the comment. I could change that. I hate fireworks, let's say, because they are loud. And then name still Scooby. Again, we could change what post that's attributed to. So if we want to make this comment, tied to Friday instead of Sunday, we have the ability to quickly change that here. But for now, I'm going to keep it with Sunday. So save and continue. So that got updated. Again, if I go back to here, notice my comment before was I hate fireworks. I refresh it. There we go, because they are loud. So just to recap what we did, I guess 2 or 3 steps you need to do. One is you need to run Python manage.py. Let me clear this to get more room. Python manage.py. Create super user is the command that's going to create a default admin user for your system. Super user. All right, so we want to run this command, fill out the form. It's just like username, email, password, and maybe a couple other things. All right, so you create a super user. Then you need to go to your admin.py file in your app folder and register your models. If you don't do that, your models won't show up on your terminal or on your panel. So again, if I go back to my panel, home, these won't show up until you register them through the admin.py file. So the way to do that, the syntax for it is admin.site.register and pass it the models that you want to track. So in this case, posts and comments are what we had. I added them, registered them, and then they showed up on my admin panel. Any questions about using the admin panel here? I can delete data here. I don't want to do it because I don't want to retain it, but you have the option to delete data. So that's the D part of CRUD. You can update it, which we showed. You could add new items. Let's actually add a new post. Let's add a new comment. So I'm going to add a new comment. Let's make it on the Saturday post. Let's say, I love sleeping in on Saturdays. And then I will be the author of that. Save. Cool. That got added. So if I go back to my homepage, let's go back Saturday. Now notice that there's a comment by me.
So the URL that you go to, the local AS8000 blog adverb 8000/admin, you didn't set that in the URLs, right? That's just already there.
Yeah, I didn't add that. That route was already added for us. So again, if we go back to our URLs on our project folder, this path is already kind of created for you. So you could change this. I'm pretty sure you could change this to something else, and then that would be your admin path. But again, I don't mess with that because I have no reason to. But yeah, this path is pointing to admin site URLs. And that's, again, more URLs are being kind of included there. All right, so again, just an easy way for you, the developer, to CRUD your data, create, read, update, and delete. But obviously, this isn't suitable for users. You're not going to allow your users to access your admin panel and cause some chaos if they want to.
One more question real quick. So as the data gets bigger, are you able to like nest things in different sections? Or is it like, are you going to have like comments, and then if say there's 1,000 comments, is there any way to?
Yeah, if you have 1,000 comments, it's going to show 1,000 comments here. It might break them into pages. I'm not sure. I've not dealt with 1,000 data items on my admin panel, but I think, yeah, it's just going to show you all of them as a list.
Okay.
Okay, so that's your admin panel. Let's go back to developing CRUD options. So again, this is suitable for you, the developer, but users of your site are not going to have admin access, and you don't want them to have admin access. So how can users actually create data when sensible? And that's where we get into creating, I guess, CRUD capabilities for the user. So if I go to, let's think about what we need to do. So we've done read, right? Read's the simplest one, where we just have data and we throw it back to the user and they can read it. But what if they want to create data? So in this case, let's say a user wants to create a new post. Obviously, we're not going to let them access our admin panel, as we talked about. So let's actually create a new route. I'm going to go to my URLs in my app file and create a new route that the user can land on. So let's go to post.new, or post/new is my new route. I'm going to call that post create, and the name will also be post create. Okay, so this is going to be a new route that the user can go to. That's going to be handled by my views.post create, which obviously doesn't exist right now. So let's create that. So I'm going to do define post_create. It's going to take in a request object, and that's it. And then let's see what this is going to do. So let's return. Let's render something. So I'm going to render some page. Let's create a new template. So I know I'm going kind of quick, but hopefully you guys are familiar with the steps we took before. So I'm going to create a new template in my app folder. So templates, posts, let's create a new file here. I'm going to call it post create. Keep my name consistent. All right, post create.html. Let's populate that with some HTML stuff here. All right, so H1 will be create a new post. I don't know why I use exclamation so much, but I guess I'm excited about creating a new post. All right, so this, if you kind of remember our past talk about HTML forms are the main mechanism where users can input data, and then you can capture that data and use it as needed. So in this case, I'm going to create a form. And then inside my form, I'm going to have an input and probably a button. Sorry, I need to close my input here. Let's give some IDs. I'm kind of losing my HTML formatting here. All right, ID, this will be, let's say, title. And placeholder will be title also. All right, let's have a few inputs. So we're going to create a new post. We need title. We need a body for our and we need a name. And these aren't required, but hopefully they enter all fields. So we have placeholder. Let's call that your name. All right, so this is going to be a form. It's going to have 3 input fields. We probably want some labels. So let's create some labels quickly. Label title. It's not going to look the best, so apologies for poor styling, but I just want to get this form up and running. So title, body, and just call this author. All right, so form, that's going to have these items. I probably need to clean up the styling at some point. It's also going to have a button. That button type is going to be submit. We'll call this add. All right, so we're going to create a new post, the user's going to add some information, and then click an add button. Question is, how are we going to process this data? So to do that, you need to look at my notes here. We need action. So for our form, I'm going to add an action attribute, and this is going to call something. Where did that go? Yeah, so it's going to link to some processor, I guess, or some route. In this case, URL. The route's going to be post app. And then what's going on here? Let me put this out here. All right, so URL. So this is what we did before, where we're using relative linking instead of hard coding where we want to link to. Post underscore app. In this case, I think it's called post dash create was the name of that route. And we don't need to pass anything else there. So again, this is in my form. I added an action attribute. And then what else do I need to do here? Okay, and then we need to have a method will be equal to post. Again, so this is going back to our HTTP discussion, if you guys remember that. When you go to a web page and do a GET request, a GET is basically retrieving data. A post actually lets you submit data to your server. So I need to make sure I format all this stuff correctly though. All right, so method is post. The action is going to be processed by this route. All right, let's actually see what happens here. So I'm going to save that, go back to my views. I want to render something. That render is going to be post create. And then in this case, I don't have any data that I want to pass through right now. So I should render my post create page, assuming I don't have anything too crazy wrong there. All right, server refresh, so that seems to be good. So now we need to navigate to our new path, which is post/new. So I'm going to go back to my browser, blogs, posts/new. All right, notice we have our form. Again, not the best looking form. Probably want to add some break lines. Let me quickly do that for my sanity. Let's add some break lines so that these are on some new lines. Break line, break line, and break line. All right, maybe that looks slightly better. Probably not aligned perfectly, but you guys get the idea of what I'm trying to go for. If I had more time, I definitely would clean up the styling here. But let's actually add some data here. So let's say Monday. So let's continue our pattern. Monday post. Body is I hate Mondays. And then author. Who wants to be an author of this? Who hates Mondays out there? Anyone? No one? Everyone loves Mondays?
Everyone hates Mondays, Hunker.
All right. So Sean will be the author of that post. let's see what happens when we hit add. So right now nothing's going to happen. So we get an error. All right, I forgot about this, but this is a good learning point. This is just something you have to remember when you're dealing with forms in Django. You need to add the Csrf token. It's a security measure. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. Just for now, just take my word for it. You got to add this for your forms. So I'm going to copy that, go back to my forms, and then inside of my form here, I'm going to add that token. Didn't copy that correctly. Cancel. Command C. All right, so just take my word for it. It's easy to forget. I forget a lot of times, and you'll get that error. So if you see some error about Csrf token, just know that you need to add this inside of your form. Again, it's a security measure. I'm not going to spend time talking about it right now, but just you need it. Just take my word for it, and we'll go from there. So with that, if I go back to my page, refresh, I lost that Monday post. I hate Mondays. Sean made that post. All right, so we hit add. Notice that this page kind of refreshed. So that data got sent somewhere, but we kind of just lost it because we're not actually capturing that data. So let's actually talk about actually capturing that data. So I go back to my views. Currently, my post create is only rendering that page that we created. By default, your request method is going to be a get method. So we talked about this during the HTTP discussion. So you could do a get, you could do post. There's also put, there's also patch, there's also delete. But for now, we're just going to focus on getting and posting. So when this request is made, so when I go to blog/post/new, that's a get request that I'm making to the server. The server is going to receive it and then assume it's a get request and return whatever we want to. But in this case, we could also check out request dot what is it, method. We're going to do request dot method equals post. I need to check my syntax here. Let's actually print this out. So print request dot method. It should be an object on there. So basically, we're checking if the method is a post action, we want to do something different. So in this case, let's just print out something that's request dot post. All right, so so basically, if we're posting to this route, we want to do something different. So instead of returning that page, let's just return an HTTP response saying, hey, you created a post. All right, so there's two pieces that are being done here. With a get request, we're just going to return the page. If they submit a post request, we want to do something different. We want to actually capture that data and do something with it, which we're not doing right now, and maybe return something else. So let's actually see if this works. So I'm going to save that. My terminal says everything looks to be good. Let's just create a blank post. I don't want to type everything in. All right, so multi-value dictionary key. All right, something went wrong. All right, so this looks like to be a problem. Press that post. All right, let me comment this out quickly. Okay, let's go back. Let's see if I add it. All right, notice we created a post. Obviously, we haven't actually created a post, but we are able to do something different. The reason is when we click this add button, we submit a post request to the same route. So add is a post request versus when we navigate this to this location ourselves, that's a get request. So given that, we could check, hey, if the method is post, do something with that data. So I need to figure out how to get that data. So request.method, we print that out somewhere. That's down here. All right, how do we actually access that data? And that's a good question here. So can I just print out this post object? Maybe they'll give us some key into what's going on here. So let's add. Okay, let's look at our terminal and see what happened here. So we got a query dictionary of CSRF middleware token and some garbage. That is not what I expected. What's going wrong here? So we have our CRF token. I know what happens. Anyone happens to know what I did wrong? It's very not obvious. So I gave it my input fields IDs. We actually need to give them an attribute of name. That's just a picture or something to do with forms. Name is what it cares about. ID is more for your HTML document. Name is for your form. So I guess I could do both in case I want to interact with both of them. So basically what's happening is that post dictionary is actually going to try to grab values based on the name. Since I didn't have a name, it just basically ignored, the data that was entered there. So if I save this now, let's try doing this again. I'm going to go back, add. All right. If I look at my terminal here, do I have anything different? Do I need to refresh this page? Probably. Refresh, continue. Okay, let's try this again. Add. All right, so notice, hopefully you guys can kind of read this. Notice down below here, I have a dictionary that I printed out. It has the values I entered. I have EEE as my title, and then I have my body here as FFFF. So we actually have access to the data from the forms. Again, the mistake I made, hopefully that's a learning lesson. When you're creating your forms, make sure that you have a name field. It's going to look for that name and use that as your dictionary key. So if I go back to my views now, I should be able to print out post.title out to my console, because that title, this name, is coming from the name of that field from that form. So if I do that one more time, go back, let me just navigate to it. All right, let's enter in a bunch of A's for my title. I hit add. Let's look at my terminal here. Notice I got those A's printed out. So I have access to that data. Again, look at my terminal. I have access to that data via this post object that I guess that it's a dictionary of values. So request that post. I forget, again, my memory is the worst. Someone asked, hey, do you ever do something with this request object? And this is where you actually will use it, where you want to grab data from the request. So in this case, this post object has a bunch of key value pairs. So I should stop saying object, it's a dictionary. So this post dictionary gives me access to the title, likewise the name and the body. So now that we have that, we can actually create a post object. So we can do new post equals a post object. And here, let's break this up to make it a little more clean. So I'll do title equals, let me do it this way. All right, so we're creating a new post. Now I could actually populate the values on that new post. So I'll do new post dot title equals, what is it? Request dot post title, right? And this is coming from our dictionary that capture the values from our page. And then I'm just populating it on the object that I'm creating. So new title dot body equals, did I name it body? I always forget. Yep, body and name. So those namings are consistent. Go back to my views. So body and name.
I don't know if it'll cause issues going forward, but you did that ID for all three of them title.
Thank you. That probably will be an issue at some point. So good eyes there. Thank you for catching that. Okay, so we have those. We go back to not post detail or views. So now we can capture those values the user enters. I'm going to transfer that into my post object that I'm just creating. And the final thing I need to do is called new post.save. That save is actually what saves it to the database. One thing that I want to mention, again, I'm not too worried about right now. Usually you want to do something like if new post.full clean. Again, if you remember from validations, you probably want to have some check here. So like, for example, if your title can't be null, you want to have full clean actually check that for us. So that if we have an invalid record, we don't want to add it to the database, right? Our database, our data in our database should always be valid, as in we should not have errors or bad formatted data. So you always want to call full clean to make sure you have actual clean data that you expect. So I think, yeah, full clean, if that passes, then we want to hit save. Usually you probably want to wrap this in a try catch. Let me do that quickly. Try expect, sorry, try catch is with JavaScript. Try accept, so let's just say print here. All right, so new post.save, if everything goes well here, should save it to our database. So let's actually try this out. Again, our post request, post method versus our get method. So let's add some comments. This is get request. And this is our post request. All right, so the same page, just doing different request methods. So if I go back to /new, let's add a new title. I didn't actually create that past article, so let's say Monday post, enter text, I hate Mondays. And Sean was author of that, Sean was author of that. Let's hit add. All right, hey, you created a post. Did we actually create a post? Well, we could check our homepage now. So if I go back to blog, we did not create it, so that was unfortunate. Let's look at what happened here. New post not saved. What happened? What happened? All right, I don't see any error message here, so I'm not actually sure what happened. New post title. Where is our post? Get rid of this full clean. So we didn't see this printed out to our console. I don't see it anywhere. Post create. Let's get rid of this stuff. Okay, I'm not sure what went wrong, so let's quickly try to figure that out. So if I go to new, let's enter some garbage MMP. All right, do we get an error here? Nope, we got a post. So we got into this because this is post. We tried this and I didn't see an error message here. So not sure what new post.save is actually putting us here.
Would it be worthwhile to look into the admin page, see if there's any data actually getting shoved in there?
Absolutely, good suggestion. Okay, so that M got created. I don't know where my Monday post went. Maybe I didn't refresh my page. So if I go back to my home page, yeah, I might have just not refreshed my page. Blog/posts. Yep, there it is. So the M got created. So I think I just didn't refresh my page after changing my logic. Always got to do that. So let's create one more post just to make sure I'm not lying. So let's go to Tuesday posts. Nothing exciting ever happens on Tuesday. I probably want to make this a text field, so I use the wrong input field. Let's just say Jack made that post. Click add. All right, hey, we created a post. We could maybe auto navigate them to our homepage, but we have Tuesday post. Jack created that post. Nothing exciting ever happens on Tuesday, which is pretty true. I have a typo here. All right, any questions about what we just did here? We created a form on our front end. We submit a post request so that we can capture the values from the page and transfer it to our database. What questions do you guys have about creating new objects?
This is awesome. Also going to break a whole lot of stuff learning it.
Yep. Yeah, well, again, many things can go wrong, as I made like a few errors here. Like I forgot my Csrf token. That's easy mistake to make because it's some weird foreign thing that doesn't really stick out to you. But just remember, for your forms, just remember to have this in there. If you don't, you'll get some error message. Likely will point you to the right direction. All right, so I know we're running to lunch. I don't want to take up too much of your lunchtime, but we have some more material to go through. So I'm going to kind of skip over the updating part, but I will say the updating is very similar to creation. So here we're grabbing values. Instead of creating a new post, you need to find the existing post. So your update method, if I can kind of stub it out, is going to look very, very similar to your create method. So if I do post update, That's going to be a request. This is going to be tied to a particular post ID. The logic here is going to be nearly identical. The only difference is instead of creating a new post, I'm going to do something like post.objects.get, and then ID equals post ID. So now when a user submits a particular update for a post, I should find it in my database, assuming it exists, post ID, and that should be a value passed to your handler here. So I'm going to add a pass here. Your URL will look a little different though. So instead of doing /new, you probably want to do something like, where'd that go? Post detail. And for that post detail, I'll probably use something like update. So now this is a new path. They're going to do that for a particular post, as opposed to new. That's, again, that doesn't have an ID tied to it because you've not created that post yet. But when I go to /ID/update, that should give me a new page for updating. So if let me quickly do this. So that's going to be post update. This should be post update is my view handler for that. So that's what I created down below. Again, usually when you have repeated code, you want to condense it. In the interest of time, I am not going to go through that. I'm just going to copy and have redundant code. So very bad. Don't follow my example. But in this case, I want to use post ID as opposed to up here. This was a new post. All right, so now that we have a post ID, we still get the title, body, and name. There is a way to kind of pre-populate these fields. Again, we're gonna get more of this after the break. I just want to show this. So we get a post ID. Again, you should pre-populate your fields with the existing data. But for now, I'm just going to continue on here. I guess we could do that. Sorry, I just want to make the naming correct. So if I do this here, pass this here. All right, so I'm just going to go over the idea here. I apologize, I'm kind of rushing. The idea here would be you'd grab this post at the very top. So a post ID comes in. You grab a post for the method of, sorry, I'm saying posts repeatedly. For when you're doing a post method, you could use that post and update the data. When you do a get request for that post, you want to pass in some data that's going to have a dictionary. Let's see. It's going to be a data dictionary, and then you would have posts as a key, and then pass your post that you grabbed up above. So when they navigate to a post update, you should be able to pass that post as data. And then in your template, so for post create, in my template here, I could pre-populate my value here to be post.title in this case. Does that make sense? I know I'm kind of roughly doing this, but if I pass the post object here, I could pre-populate my fields. Between quotes. Does that make sense to you guys? Maybe, maybe not. All right, so I'm going to actually copy my post create template. Copy that. Let's create a copy and rename that to update. So post update is my new template. And then it's going to be essentially identical to create, but in this case, we want to go to update. And then, as I said, I could do something like value equals, what was it? Post.title. All right, so if I want to pass it that value, I want to call post update, pass the data of that post. All right, let's test this out and see if it makes sense. Might have figured out a step. So we have post 5, which is Tuesday post.
You had an extra quote in one of the, I think your HTML file. Line 15.
Thank you. You guys are great at spotting errors. All right, so I go to /5 /update, no reverse match, post update. All right, so my URL seems to be screwed up. So I have post/that/update. What did I screw up here? Views, post update. takes in 2 parameters. That looks fine. Let's read our error message. So always good to kind of see what Django is telling us here. Okay, there we go. So post update does not exist because I probably didn't give that name. So we go back to my URLs. Post update, that looks kosher. What's wrong here? Post app, post update. For some reason, you can't find it. Why can't it find it? I don't know. Let's just try refreshing. No reverse match blog post updates. All right, not sure why that would be a problem. Post/post update.html. Did I misname it or something? Post update.html. Well, seems fine there. Post update. Anyone happen to know what I screwed up here?
Wasn't there a third argument on the URL?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I need to pass the ID here. In this case, I'm not passing ID, so that's why I think it's complaining. So I go to post update. I want to pass post.id here, right? Because that method requires a post ID, right? So this requires a post ID, so I need to pass it from the post object that I have present here. So I save this. Hopefully that cleans it up. Let's go back to update. There we go. So notice that I've pre-populated Tuesday posts. I can do the same with body and author. I just chose not to do it. But now that I have that there, I could add, change the title. So let's say Tuesday post updated. If I hit save, I probably will lose this. So I'll just put in whatever. Okay, I created a post. That's a lie. I should probably change that to you updated post. If I go back to my homepage, I have my Tuesday post updated. Notice that text changed. So again, creating and updating is very similar. You just there's a few differences. For update, you have a particular post you need to update versus creating a post, you just create a new post object. Also, you probably want to pre-populate your fields like I've done here. For update, just make it more friendly. And the very last thing is you probably want to condense this code into as much as you can. So again, creating, updating, very similar logic. Think about condensing that into a single method if you can. And you should be able to, again, because there's a lot of overlap. All right, that is the U part of CRUD. The last part is delete. Luckily, delete is very simple. So let's go through that really quickly. I'm going to add a new route, and that's going to be for a particular post. All right, so this is going to be delete. And the route name will be delete, and the handler will be _delete. Again, delete doesn't require the user to fill out anything other than just hit a button that says delete. So if I create views that post delete, should be pretty straightforward. Views, post updates, let's create post delete. Define post delete, takes in a request, takes in an ID also because we want to delete one particular post. All right, and then here we just need to find that post. So let's do post. I do this. We do post.objects.delete, and then the ID will be post ID. Simple enough. Again, we probably want to validate that that's a valid post ID, but other than that, we want to delete it from our database and then return some message. So let's say HTTP response. You successfully deleted this post. All right, so all we need to do is pass the post ID, delete it from our database, and then return some useful information to our user. All right, let's, how do you want to do that? All right, I guess I'm going the lazy way. I think the more user-friendly way would be create a page that has a delete button or like a confirmation button that says, hey, are you sure you want to delete this? So in this case, if they navigate to /delete, it's actually going to delete the object. So if I go, notice that Tuesday post updated is here. If I go to that post and go to /delete, manager as an all right, I forgot my all. Let's try that one more time. All right, so I'm on my post 5. I'm going to go to the /delete URL. Okay, what's going on here?
I think you grab the object and then you delete it.
Grab the object and then delete it.
So like get by ID, and then you have that object, and then you do object.delete. And
Gotcha. So we get post to delete. And then I think Tom was saying post to delete, called delete on there.
yeah, I believe so. Just about.
Okay. Thought I could do the other way, but probably not. All right, so I have that. Let's try one more time, hopefully. All right. So again, going to that new router created, which is the ID, and then /delete. Go there. All right, successfully deleted this post. Again, we should verify that, so we could do that from our homepage. Does that still exist? Nope. That post has disappeared. Again, as I mentioned, user-friendly way to do it would probably be create a landing page that has a button that says delete. It may pop up something that says, are you sure you want to delete it? Just in case, they aren't sure. Normally, you don't want to just delete something by going to a URL directly. Like as a user, they're not going to, know that, hey, this is going to automatically delete my data. So again, this page should probably, the delete page should show a button saying, hey, hit this delete button and you could delete it. All right, so that's our CRUD. Again, the read part's the easiest. You just take data from a database and throw it out to the user via some template. The create and update are the most complicated parts because you actually got to process data and then make sure you got to validate it. So make sure you're validating your user input because user input is never going to guaranteed be valid. And then deleting, simple enough. You just grab the object and delete it and you're good to go. So that is our CRUD from our user standpoint. Again, from our developer standpoint, we have many options. We can use fixtures, we can use a seed file, we use our admin panel to add, update, delete, add, read, update, and delete from our database. But users, they need some interface to actually work with your data in the manner that you want them to interact with it. So we did it for posts. You can also do it for comments. So comments can kind of have the same form. We can create a new comment. That might get a little more tricky because it's related to a post, but essentially the same idea.
Are the methods for dealing with interaction with the database, is that always going to be on via views? Or,
As in your views.py, that works. Yeah, so again, your views.py is known as your controller. It basically ties your backend data to your front end presentation. So your views is again, have the most logic in it. I mean, you could break it out into a different file. So you're allowed to create another file called posts up, like post views, and then comment views if you want to better organize your data. But yeah, your views file is your master processor that says I'm taking input data, processing it, saving it, retrieving data. It's doing all the work for you.
and if you did create other files, then you just import it into your views?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. You can make it more modular if you want to. Okay, so going to our curriculum page, today's the 2nd. We covered CRUD concepts, and Django templating is the last thing I want to cover. Styling Django. Yep.
We don't have to cover that right now. We can.
Okay.
I'm going to link to another thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, we'll definitely cover it after the break. We had a few days of CRUD, so templating will just make your life easier when you want repeated code. So that and styling kind of goes together. But yeah, in the interest of time and not throwing too much new information your way, kind of just focus on dealing with CRUD, and we're going to build upon it after the break. If you look at the curriculum page, they actually use something called model form. I think I spotted it somewhere, model form. This is a Django-friendly way that makes your life easier. We did not cover that in lecture. If you're interested, you can go about reading about model form. But the way we did it in lecture, this is kind of like the harder way to do it, but we want to make sure that you understand what's going on. So using this post dictionary and grabbing the data and kind of, creating your own object yourself, this is kind of the manual way to do it, but make sure you understand that. We're going to be talking about model forms much more after the break, and that's just Django being much more friendlier and doing all the hard work for you behind the scenes. So we normally do this with our approach here. Like we're going to do a lot of things like the hard way and then show you the easier way once we kind of understand the magic behind the scenes. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording here.